Hey friend, welcome back to Hey Wait. This is Jay. Hey, it's really good to be here with you. It's been a minute since it's been just you and I and not a guest. In fact, the last time I did a solo episode was when I talked about the diagnosis that I got last year of hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, mast cell activation syndrome, and POTS, and grouped together known as the dysautonomia trifecta. And I wanted to start by saying thank you to all of you who listened to that episode and felt moved to reach out to me and let me know you were thinking of me and sharing your words of kindness and care. They were received and deeply appreciated. And with that, I also want to thank you for listening today and for listening all the other times you've listened and for sharing the episodes with people that you think would really resonate with them. And for all the sweet emails and DMs and comments that you leave, letting me know how an episode has impacted you or something that a guest said that you applied in your life. Hearing that from you is so meaningful to me because it makes me feel like the work that I'm doing matters. And that is a core need, not just for me, but for all of us. And in fact, that's a great segue into what I want to talk with you about today, because this conversation that I'm about to have with you comes up all the time in my sessions with clients. And I thought, hey, wait, this is something that I really need to share on the podcast because understanding what I'm about to share with you has the ability to shift everything in your life. And I know that is a really big statement, but I find that when you're smart and you understand a whole bunch of things and you're self-aware and you know what you're doing and you still can't seem to figure out the disconnect between I don't like how I'm doing this and I don't know how to do it differently, then it can really be amazingly helpful for someone to just kind of like lift the veil and reveal the paradigm that you've been operating in and what about it is false so that you can get out of your own way. So that's what I want to do today. And I want to start by talking about 3 core needs that every human being has, that your nervous system and your brain and your body view as essential for life. Those 3 things are safety, belonging, and mattering. So safety is feeling that your physical and your emotional environment are secure and predictable and don't pose an ongoing chronic threat. Belonging is feeling connected to family or community or group and knowing that within that group, within those connections, you are accepted and you are welcomed. And then mattering is knowing that your existence and your actions have value and make a difference for other people. So safety, belonging, and mattering. These are things that every human being needs. And so you know that your nervous system's job is to constantly and forever be scanning your outer and your inner environment, looking for signs of danger and threat. Well, if we're to be more specific about what it's looking for a lack of those core needs being met. So it's looking for a lack of safety, a lack of belonging, and a lack of mattering. And if it senses that lack, it will automatically shift your behavior towards protection and survival, which is to say, it will put you into a stress response, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And the way I say this to clients all the time is to understand that everything you say and do and how you behave is you constantly organizing yourself around trying to get these needs for safety, belonging, and mattering met. And today, I want to focus on those of us who have a really strong default for a fawn stress response. And if you're not familiar with that, fawning is when you try to maintain connection with someone else at all costs as a way of creating that sense of safety, belonging, and mattering. So it often looks like chronic people pleasing in order to earn a sense of I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm valued. I think this stress response, more than any of the others, really puts the capacity for feeling safety, belonging, and mattering in the hands of the other person, or in the environment around you. So there's this real lack of I can be a source of safety, belonging, and mattering for myself. And instead, I need to orchestrate my surroundings and I need to control and manipulate the people around me in order to make sure that I can get these core needs. And none of this is necessarily conscious, right? These three core needs are an imperative at the level of our nervous systems. So it can sometimes go completely under the radar that this is what you're even doing. By the time you're aware enough to be able to track your own behaviors, it can be so conditioned in you that this is just what you do that you no longer see these as survival mechanisms. You see these as personality traits. And so something to understand about this as well is that, your nervous system is scanning the outer environment for things like people's tone of voice or the expression on their face or their body language to read, do they like me? Am I safe here? Do they respect me? But your nervous system is also reading your inner environment, which is to say the sensations in your body and your emotions. So if you feel rejected, that translates as a loss of belonging. If you feel invisible, that translates as a loss of mattering. And if you feel attacked, that translates as a loss of safety. And so when you can't identify what your feeling state is, but your nervous system has identified it because you feel tight or you feel heavy or you feel hollow or you feel empty, you will automatically go into protective modes, survival modes, and it will alter your behavior. So then this gets me to what I want to talk to you about today, and that is the two emotions that I see over and over and over again that people who fawn have a really difficult time feeling. And the first one is fear. And I actually want to read to you a letter that a listener wrote in about this because I think she does such a great job of speaking to the experience that you might also really identify with. And before I read this letter, I want to say specifically to the person who sent this, my sincere apologies in it taking me so long to get to answering this question. It is not because it wasn't a phenomenal question. In fact, it is the perfect question. And I'm so hoping you're listening and you get this answer because you asking this question is definitely going to help a lot of people. Okay, so here's the question. This listener wrote in, one aspect of myself that I'm aware of but not quite sure how to delve into is in regard to anger. Not how to control my anger, but actually how to allow myself to feel and express it. I see this as a version of seeking approval and belonging in childhood and being a quote, good girl. What I'm noticing now that I'm 60 and have had awareness of it for several years is that this seems to be a feeling that is stuck in some sort of black box in my psyche that I have a hard time feeling in my body. The closest I often come is to feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, or out of control. I want to learn how to feel anger in my body and let it move through me in a natural way as it's meant to do. But it would seem that decades of training have kept it locked away inside. This does not feel like it honors all of me. I say this to ask if this might be a topic that others wrestle with and might benefit from learning about. Yeah, I think so, because I think it's possible that you, the person listening, heard that just now and were like, yeah, I also have a hard time feeling my anger, or I also feel like it is locked away in this black box and I can't have access to it in my body. Before I go forward, as I say that, I also thinking about how in last season, I interviewed Dr. Mitch Abrams about anger, and he really came on and spoke to the listener who has more of a fight response, where you, when you feel threatened, do go into being angry, pushing people away, being more aggressive, being more defensive, being more on attack. And I heard from those of you who resonated with him, like, my gosh, this episode was so important for me to hear. But I also recognize that for those of us fawners who listened to that episode, it was like, this ain't my problem. I do not have a problem blowing up with anger. I have a problem with stuffing it down in me to the point where, like the person who wrote in with the question, it's not honoring all of you. So I want to unpack this for you. To say it straight up, A person with a fawn stress response feels deeply threatened by their own anger because their nervous system views it as a direct threat to their safety, belonging, and mattering. And that's because, again, fawning is when you think you attain survival by keeping the peace. So when anger bubbles up inside of you, it's read as a threat because it breaks your capacity to do that strategy. If you were to show your anger, you would be risking rejection, abandonment, conflict, all these things that your nervous system deems as not okay. And not just not okay, but like deeply threatening to your existence. Now, this isn't necessarily conscious again, because as I say it out loud, I could see where you're smart, you're rational, and you're like, but that's not true. I could set a boundary and it wouldn't kill me. But at the level of your nervous system, it kind of feels like it might. Anger also shatters the identity of good girl or good boy, good person. The person who wrote in with the question named it so perfectly. She said, I have a feeling this has to do with my years and decades long conditioning as a good girl. If you see yourself as being the good person, you will judge your own anger as bad or toxic or dangerous, because if it comes out, it risks you no longer feeling like you have value, which is going to hit at your core need for mattering, right? Because if you have identified as the good girl forever and a day, and everyone expects you to always show up thoughtfully, empathically, compassionately, putting their needs above your own, you see your value as being in that identity. Other people might even see your value as being in that. And if you rock the boat by saying, hey, I disagree with you, I'm angry about this, I need to set a boundary with you, it feels like it might be impairing your value in that situation. And in fact, it very well might be, because once you've trained all the people in your life to expect that this is how you're going to show up, they don't always take too kindly to you making your own needs matter. And you probably have learned that the hard way at some point yourself. The other thing about anger in a fawning body is that sometimes you have been the person who's experienced anger, someone blowing up at you, someone threatening you, someone even physically harming you. And so when your body feels that energy come up within yourself, your nervous system sees that emotion as a threat and attacks it to keep it down. Because it's like, I recognize that. I've seen that before. I've been on the other end of that. I don't want any part of this. And so can you feel, as you're listening, how this relationship between your body and your nervous system and anger would make it nearly impossible for you to feel comfortable feeling anger, much less expressing it? Because anger is a mobilizing emotion. It's associated with the fight response. So your body gets a surge of cortisol and adrenaline that comes in when you feel angry. And you would feel that as heat, tightness, clenching, particularly in your fists, your arms, your shoulders, your jaw. So it's a tremendous amount of a very different kind of energy than you might be used to. So if you think of yourself as a 60-watt bulb, right? That your wiring is comfortable operating at 60 watts. When you get angry, it's like all of a sudden you're at 100 watts. And the fear is that the bulb is going to explode, which is you blowing up on somebody else, getting angry at them, shouting at them, or that you're going to short circuit, right? Like that you yourself won't be able to operate. And for people who have a fawn response, you tend to be the one who feels like that just fried my circuitry. I don't even know what to do. And you shut down. So if this sounds familiar to you, your challenge is to show your nervous system that you can experience this heightened energy of anger without losing safety, belonging, and mattering. So it starts at the level of sensation. When you are in a situation, someone just cut in line in front of you at the coffee shop, and immediately you might feel this tightness in your throat or chest. You get this kind of wave of heat and this surge of energy. To be able to name that as, I just felt a surge of energy that's anger. And then to tell yourself, hey, wait, this is just energy and information. So you're separating the sensation from the outcome that you think is going to happen if you allow for it to be there. Because the sensation itself might be uncomfortable, the heat, the kind of the surge of adrenaline. But if it's not coming out of you, it's not posing any danger to your safety, belonging, and mattering. So if you can feel the sensation and go, this is anger, see if you can say to yourself, hey, wait, this is just energy and information. It might also be true that you feel scared of it. So then you could say internally to yourself, it's scary for me to feel this anger. But that doesn't mean you stop feeling the sensation that goes with the anger. So it's about learning to stay with yourself in that physical sensation that is more like 100 watts. So noticing the tightness, noticing the heat, letting yourself feel the clenching of your muscles, but also layering on a different felt resource so that that intensity of the heat or the clenching or the tightness doesn't overwhelm you. So something like feeling your feet on the ground or feeling your fingers as you rub them together or looking around the room and naming 5 things that you can see that are blue. It's not that you're trying to make the sensations go away. It's that you're trying to create another layer of sensation that you're aware of that isn't as intense, isn't as threatening, isn't as uncomfortable, so that your nervous system can stay more regulated and you can stay present with yourself. Now, because anger is an emotion of activation, where again, you get that surge of adrenaline and cortisol and your muscles are tightening because you are ready to activate, to fight or defend yourself. Metabolizing anger in your system looks like dissipating energy. So you might not do this in the moment right there as you're standing in the coffee shop. But as you get back to your car, if you're still feeling that activation of the anger, you can shake, let out a deep breath, or actually make some vocalizations like, growl, or give yourself permission to consciously scream or stomp your feet or push your hands into a wall or your desk or your steering wheel, or simply push your hands into each other and to feel that power and energy consciously being yoked. And all of these things start to train your nervous system to know that anger isn't actually a threat. In fact, anger is a really important emotion that indicates to you what you care about, right? Like, this is a time in the United States where a lot of people are angry because things that you care about are being destroyed, are being threatened, are being taken away. And anger is the emotion that lets you know that you care about something. So it can actually be a force for good when you know how to stay with the sensation of the emotion in your body and metabolize it enough to take action on what you care about. So for those of you fawners who have stuffed your anger down, I want you to start by 1, starting to play with letting the sensation be there and naming it. This is anger. And when you name it, you can say, this is just energy and data. And if you're still scared that it's there, you can say, I'm scared that this is here. And I didn't mention this before, but with any emotion that you're feeling, it's always a very worthwhile thing to do to say the 2 words, of course, as in, of course I feel angry. Of course I feel angry in this moment. It doesn't mean you have to like the sensation of the anger or want to act on it, but you making your anger make sense to you is part of helping you emotionally regulate. And the other thing to notice here, and this is, I really want you fawners to hear this, and I say this as being part of your group. I am also a fawner. I really want you to hear that anger is proof that you care about yourself. Because any time that you feel angry over how someone is treating you or a boundary that you didn't set that has been crossed, it's proof that you care about yourself, that you want good things for yourself. And this is so important. And I want you to really take this in, because when you don't allow yourself to feel your anger, it often gets turned against yourself in the form of self-criticism. You know, that voice in your head that's saying, That's bad. You shouldn't feel that way. You can't do that. You don't get to ask for that. Who are you to want that? Does that feel familiar as I say that? Like that is the healthy energy of self-protection and anger getting turned on yourself. So for you to be able to say, this is anger, it's energy and information. It's not taking away from my safety, belonging, and mattering. Of course I feel angry. And wow, this is me proving to myself that I matter. And this is the point that I wanted to make. When, as a fawner, you learn to stay with yourself when you have sensations of anger arise in your body, you are giving yourself safety, belonging, and mattering. You're giving yourself safety because you haven't left yourself alone. You haven't abandoned yourself in whatever the situation is. You're giving yourself belonging because you're with you. Again, you're saying, I accept you in this moment. I won't go away from you. And you're giving yourself mattering by saying, I value you enough to feel this feeling and see what's underneath of it. The other thing I want to mention about anger before we move on is, and this is true for all people, not just fawners. Anger also is rarely a primary emotion. It's usually covering up an emotion underneath that's more vulnerable to feel, like fear or sadness or grief. For example, if your beloved pet is sick and you call the vet to try and get an appointment because you're worried about what's wrong, and they say they don't have an appointment for 4 days, you might get angry and you might be a jerk to the person who's taking the appointments and, mouth off about how you can't believe they can't even get you in and what kind of office is this and all that stuff. But really underneath of that anger is fear. What's going on with my sweet pet that I love, and the sadness that what happens if I can't get them help, and all of those more tender emotions. So the good news for the fawners out there is that another thing you can do with anger is you can ask, if I didn't feel angry right now, what would I feel? Because that will usually unveil a more tender emotion that might feel easier for you to accompany yourself in. And for those of you who don't fawn, who really do default to the fight response, this would be the question I would have you ask yourself more frequently. Anytime you feel anger, because that's your comfort zone, that's your go-to, I would ask yourself, if I didn't feel angry right now, just for curiosity's sake, what might be there? Because this is how you're going to get more in touch with the softer, more vulnerable aspects of yourself that will allow you to show up more regulated, more grounded, more capable of being relational, right? So in that moment on the phone, when the vet says they can't get you in, you might still get pissy, but then you might be able to say, I'm sorry, I'm just really scared about what's going to happen because I don't know what to do with these symptoms that I'm seeing in my pet. What do you suggest? That's a completely different exchange than being a jerk and hanging up. So for the person who wrote in that fabulous, fabulous question about what to do with your anger, I hope this helps you to understand more of what you already knew, which is how your conditioning is influencing the inability to feel like you can safely feel your anger, but also gives you what you need to be able to start to feel your anger, to make space for it, to understand that it isn't going to take from your safety, belonging, and mattering, because you're offering yourself safety, belonging, and mattering by staying with yourself. And by staying with yourself, you're helping to regulate your emotions, which will help you to communicate in a way that is not nice girl, but grounded girl, relational girl, the version of you that's whole and can show care for another person while caring for yourself. And I hope it also helped you, listener, if you struggle with anger as well. That said, I want to talk about the second emotion that gets real tricky for us fawners, and that is fear. Fear is the emotion that most of my sessions with clients revolve around. Because if you are a fawner, that means you have spent a lifetime making sure that everyone else is okay, because that's how you get your safety, belonging, and mattering. And if your survival strategy has been to make sure that everyone else is okay, you cannot afford to be paralyzed by fear. And because if you let yourself actually feel your fear, you will feel vulnerable, you'll feel weak, you feel needy. And those are things that you will not allow because those would make you a burden. Those would put you at risk of rejection or abandonment. And so fawners tend to be across the board very self-sufficient people. They're the ones that will do everything themselves. They'll never burden another person. They'll never ask for help. They'll never have a need because that inhibits your ability to make everyone else okay. So there's this weird paradox where fawners, your behavior is completely organized around how do I maintain connection? And yet you want to be self-sufficient at all times because your idea of connection is, okay, I am plugged into my source of safety, belonging, and mattering by making sure this person is okay. And I can't need anything from them. I can't be vulnerable. I can't be weak. I can't be scared. And so you're hyper self-sufficient. But the thing that is bananas about all this is that for as hyper self-sufficient as you are, a fawner is nearly constantly living in a state of feeling threatened, but they don't ever acknowledge that they feel scared because their nervous system is actively suppressing their fear to keep their mask on so they can have it all together. Is this ringing true out there? I mean, when I first had this explained to me, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. This is exactly what I'm doing all the time. I feel scared all the time, but I don't call it scared. I feel it as I'm stressed. I feel it as I'm anxious. I feel it as I am constantly overthinking. I am approaching everything with perfectionism in mind. I am over functioning. I am going. I was talking with a client recently about her business, and she was saying how she is aware that she's really scared of getting bigger in her work because then she's a target. More people might say, well, I don't like what you're doing, or I don't like what you're saying. So it feels scary to her, but she's not aware of it feeling scary. She's just aware of how much work she's constantly doing, and yet she doesn't ever get anywhere. That's this functional freeze pattern that self-sufficient fawners get into. If you can't feel your fear, you'll go into this state of functional freeze where you're trying to fix it and figure it out and constantly doing, constantly staying busy. And yet you're not focusing on, for example, with my client, the actions in your business that would actually lead to forward momentum. You're not focusing on the things that would gain you a greater audience. You're focusing on the nitty gritties, the emails, the back and forths. And it feels like all I do is work, but yet you're not getting anywhere. So if this is resonating for you, this identifying the person who is self-sufficient and looks really together from the outside, but if you're honest with yourself deep down is pretty much scared all the time, then this is what I want you to do. I want you to practice looking for fear. In the moments throughout your day, ask yourself, am I scared right now? And just see if it's there, because I'd be willing to bet at any moment of the day, there's some level of fear there. Did I say the right thing? Do they like me? Am I wearing the right outfit? Did I do too much? Am I too much? Am I not enough? How am I going to pay my bills? Why can't I figure this out? Why does it always feel this way? All of that, like, can you feel it as I'm saying it? That like, it just amps up in your body. If you can give yourself permission to just look for it and say, is there any fear here? And if you can feel it, then I want you to say, I'm scared. Even just saying it in an imaginary way, I can feel my whole system drop. It's like all of that hyper over-functioning energy just suddenly pauses and my muscles soften and my energy relaxes. And it's like I'm no longer trying to hold myself up. I can feel the ground underneath of me. It's soothing. And then if you want to double down on that soothing, you get to say, of course I'm scared. Again, doesn't mean you like it, doesn't mean you know what to do with it, doesn't mean you can make it go away, but that it makes sense to you. Of course I'm scared. I really like this job and I want to belong here. Of course I'm scared. This person is so important to me and I would never want to say something that would make them not value our relationship, right? Make it make sense to you. And can you feel how if you do that, it really does quiet the fear? Might not make it go away entirely, but what it does is it brings back online the whole rest of you who is a really capable, intelligent person who, once you see that it's actually fear, could pivot and make a different decision, right? You might be able to see, I'm scared about attracting more customers, even though that's what I really want. Now that I know that I'm scared, I'm going to be gentler about how I approach my marketing, but I'm also going to make sure that I prioritize it. No more letting it be the thing that keeps getting pushed down the line on my to-do list. I'm going to acknowledge the fear and be with myself in the fear and do it anyway. When you're used to fear being the thing that is unconsciously running the show under the radar, it's because your mind has already told yourself the story that if this thing happens, whatever it is, I say the wrong thing, I do the wrong thing, I'm not smart enough, I'm not cool enough, whatever it is, that the outcome will be that you lose safety, belonging, and mattering. Then the way to not let fear run your life unconsciously is to, one, acknowledge it. I'm scared. And two, to validate your fear. Of course I'm scared. It might not be rational, but it makes sense to me. And what you're doing when you do those two things, see if you can feel it as I say it, you're giving yourself safety, belonging, and mattering again. You're giving yourself safety because you're like, hey, I'm here. I get that you're scared. You're not alone. You're giving yourself belonging by saying, I won't leave you. I accept you even though you're scared. And you're giving yourself mattering by saying, even though you're scared, you still have value. I respect you. You make sense to me. We can do this. Can you feel how that feels? So whether it's your nervous system detecting internal fear or internal anger as a threat, or it's detecting someone else's behavior or a situation you're in as a threat, it comes down to, again, you feeling that you are losing safety, belonging, and mattering in that moment, or perceiving that you're losing safety, belonging, and mattering in that moment. And that is what is driving the behavior. And this is important to the extent that you move through life in the paradigm that tells you your safety, belonging, and mattering comes from other people and comes from external situations. You will forever be beholden to getting it from outside of you. If you don't know how to be a resource of safety, belonging, and mattering for yourself, you will constantly need hits of it from other people. Because remember, safety, belonging, and mattering are core needs. Your nervous system, your brain, your body identify these as things you need to survive. So if you can't get them from you, you will do anything to get them from other people. And can you see how this is the rub? This is the thing that makes you unconsciously trip yourself up over and over and over again. This is the thing that gets you in your own way. This is the thing that goes, I know that I need to set a boundary and I'm not doing it. Or I know that was wrong and I didn't say anything. It's your behavior at the level of your nervous system organizing yourself around safety, belonging, and mattering. So if you want to be able to change your behavior, you have to be a source of safety, belonging, and mattering for yourself. And that comes through your felt presence with yourself at the level of physical sensations in your body. Right now, I can feel my right leg is crossed over my left. I can feel my back pressing up against the chair. I can feel that it's warm in the room and I'm here with myself. It also comes with you validating your experience, giving yourself emotional resonance. Of course I feel this way. I make sense to me. And just those extra couple beats of staying with yourself and resonating with yourself is this influx of safety, belonging, and mattering coming from you to you. I was describing it to a client the other day and I said, when you feel like you can't get safety and belonging and mattering from inside you, only from outside of you, it feels like your insides are like hollow and dry and desiccated. When you can feel safety, belonging, and mattering coming from inside of you, it's like this warm honey coats everything. It's like, here I am. This is the warmth and the fullness that allows you to honor yourself, especially when you're around other people. And that, my friend, is what it's all about. I mean, everything you want for yourself, all the ways that you feel out of alignment in your life that you want to come back into alignment, all the ways that you want to feel more joy and resonance and intimacy and abundance. All of those things are sourced from being able to feel the safety, belonging, and mattering of your own presence. And there's nothing you have to do to get that other than to start practicing looking to yourself for it and building the trust that you are a source of that for yourself. If you're digging all of this and it is making sense to you and it is lighting you up and you want more of this, this is exactly what I teach in my online course, Yours Truly, which you can find out more about at my website, which is jmoonfields.com. It's a DIY self-paced course that is full of this sort of thing that we did here, which is making known the unhealthy paradigms that you've been operating in, the unhealthy conditioning that has embedded itself in you, and helping you at the level of your nervous system and your body to rewire your behavior based upon healthy conditioning and healthy paradigms. And if you use the coupon code HeyWait-50, you'll get $50 off the registration fee. I'll put that in the show notes as well so you can access it there if you forget. But HeyWait-50 gives you $50 off Yours Truly. I also one-on-one clients, and within that intimate container, I get to accompany you in finding this safety, belonging, mattering in yourself and knowing how to regulate your nervous system and stay present with your sensations and decondition yourself from the unhealthy conditioning you got. And also, because it's in a one-on-one relationship, we get to go deep into the specifics of your life, where this is coming up, where you get tripped up the most. And a huge part of the work isn't just what do you do within your own body, but also what do you say and how do you communicate your needs in a way that's palatable to you as a fawner, as someone who's spent most of your life people-pleasing. Because there is a whole new language to learn to speak that is the language you can speak when you know how to care for someone else while caring for yourself, while you know how to be your whole self around someone else and still maintain connection. So if that kind of support appeals to you, feel free to go to my website, again, jmoonfields.com, go to the coaching page, and there's a application for working together. As someone who has struggled with all of this stuff for my entire life, there is no greater honor and pleasure and excitement than getting to be with someone as they are growing their internal resources to be at home in their own skin in their life and to like who they are in their relationships and in their work. It is so fun. And it gets me all riled up and excited every time I have a session with somebody and I see them like just soften into themselves. And when I ask them how it feels, they say calm, they say quiet, they say easeful. Like if there's anything more rewarding than that, I don't know what it is. So I hope so much that what I shared today landed for you in such a way that will help you feel more peaceful, more quiet, more easeful inside. Because if you're anything like me and the other fawners I work with, I know how loud and busy and exhausting it can be in there. And I want you to have a different experience of yourself. With that, I imagine that there is somebody who you know who absolutely needs to hear this as well. And so I would love it if you took a moment right now and shared this link with that person, because I want every single smart, self-aware, people-pleasing fawner who has been giving themselves away for so long and knows it's no longer working but doesn't know what to do about it. I want them to have some tools to know what to do about it. So thank you for sending this to them. And thank you for being here. I am super excited about the 2 guests I have coming up in the next couple weeks. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe so those episodes will be there waiting for you as soon as they drop. Okay, before I let you go into the rest of your day, why don't we take a moment together one more time to feel where you're at right now, to connect with yourself one more time in a felt way. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the temperature of the air on your skin. Notice the quality of light in the space that you're in. Hear the sounds that you can hear outside of my voice. Maybe take a big breath. Or maybe use your hands to rub your face or rub your neck, or even just rub your hands together so you can feel this is my body, this is my presence. And check in to see what your energy is like and what the energy and the sensations in your body tell you about how you feel emotionally. And then see if you can practice naming what it is that you feel. And then telling yourself, of course I feel this way. Given everything I know about me, given everything I know about this situation, it makes sense to me that I feel this way. And then see if you get a deep breath or a loosening of the muscles in your neck and shoulders, or a feeling of warmth, or that oozy feeling of warm honey filling you up. Whatever sensation lets you know this is my warm, resonant presence in my own body. This is what giving myself safety, belonging, and mattering feels like. And maybe take this opportunity to remind yourself that no matter what happens, if you have this, if you have yourself in this way, you'll be okay. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being here with you. And now I hope you can go off into the rest of your day feeling more with yourself. Thank you so much, listener, for being here today. I hope something resonated with you and helps you to have a good experience of yourself in your life and your relationships, because you really do deserve that. And if someone came to mind while you were listening today, could you take a moment and share this episode with them right now? And if you haven't had a chance to yet, please leave a review for Hey Wait, because both of those things help new people find the show. And it means a lot to me to be able to reach and connect with new people around this work. With that, if you have an idea for a guest or a topic, or you have a question for me, feel free to reach out to me at Hey Wait with Jay on Instagram. Hey Wait is produced by Viv at First Click VA, and the original music is by Dalton Grant. And hey wait, before we go, I want you to remember, your insights matter, and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself, and I'll see you next time.